What is up, everybody? Hoang Zero here, and if you haven't heard yet, I just got second place at the Fort Worth Regionals playing Machinedramon. And this video is, simultaneously my tournament recap, but also it's just, I guess, my thought process into what led to my success. And hopefully, if you're watching and you want to get your invite, maybe you can take something away from that. And let me bump up my chair a little bit. So, I've literally just got home, and I'm more or less gonna just do a video talking about my trip, talking about the experience, talking about all the things that led up to this point. Because I think there's a lot of valuable lessons from this, and if you're looking to get your invite, hopefully you can get take away from something from this, right? So this is very fresh, but why I picked Machinedramon. And so I've been playing Machinedramon, trying to get my invite since BT12, right, with Beelzemon. And I played a regional prior to this regional, and I had gotten 19th place. I bubbled out at X2, and I was really sad about it because we made it to the end of the day, and we were so close, yet so far. So we didn't get our invite then. But the reason I picked Machinedramon at the time is because I felt like I had such a good Beelzemon matchup, right? I had nearly a 100% win rate into Beelzemon over the course of a couple weeks because my entire strategy was I just never swung out and I forced them to deck themselves out. And it proved to be insanely effective. From there on, I was like, okay, well, WarGreymon, not super popular, but if they're not on BT8 or BT11, Metal Greymon, then I'm in a really great position because then I'm always going to have that edge. In BT11, the Machinedramon versus Black WarGreymon matchup was very 50-50 because of the D-Digivolving and D-Digivolving protection, but that got cut, so I felt really good about that matchup. And Hunters was a little bit tricky, but I tweaked my build. I literally spent weeks talking to one of the best, if not the best, Machinedramon player in the world, Alex from Oceania, Infinity, and we spent like every day, like we would have a session, like a 30-minute talk talking about like how do we improve Machinedramon, how do we do our matches, and like just a lot of things like that. And so like the hugest of shout outs to Alex for doing that with me. I really do appreciate it, and thanks to you, I've come so far. But into Hunters, you play your analog, you get tucked, you play a second stack, you get tucked, and so you get a lot of your tempo turned off, you get a lot of your pressure turned off. Like, how do you win Hunters matchup, right? And so we decided to add 3 Megadramon to pop the 3-cost Tamers, which is really fantastic. We bumped up our blockers to 3 count because you need to have your blocker early, otherwise you're just going to get chipped out. And I learned that you can literally just slam your 5s and your 6s very early on into that matchup, and unless they have Omni Shout, they cannot punish you. So because of that, I was able to drop and my 11-cost Machinedramon get so much tempo, so much value, and they just couldn't punish me. And then I was able to steamroll the game from there. When I played my first regional, I played into 3 different Hunters players, and I won all 3 of those games. 2-0, mind you, as well, because I spent like weeks practicing this matchup. And this was, I would say, I think like a month or 2 ago, this was that event, right? So, bubbled out, really unfortunate. And yeah, give me 1 sec, let me turn on my fan, turn off my fan. Yeah, I know, right? Okay. So, like I said, this is a very in the moment kind of take, because I want this to be very genuine, very authentic, natural, right? So I'm turning my fan on because it's really hot. We live in Texas. It's scorching hot, and it's like 100-something degrees outside, so need my fan. So afterward, my next regional was EX4. It was the very last EX4 event in North America, right? This was the Fort Worth Regionals. So I decided to take Machinedramon again. This was a deck that I was very comfortable on. I felt good into my Hunters matchup. I felt good into my BL's matchup, extremely. I felt good into Warg. I felt pretty good about Blue Flare, unless they were on a very specific tech, which will come up in the story. But yeah, I played Machinedramon. I felt very good. I hadn't lost the mirror. I had a lot of practice in the mirror. I was pretty good at that. And I still spent a lot of time talking to Alex about how we can improve the deck. And so in my pursuit to try and improve the deck, Playgoo, a member of my Discord, HMG, another Machinedramon fan, had a really smart idea. He said to run Sephirothmon, or originally it was Mercurymon, right? He wanted to play Mercurymon, And the logic was that if Hunters hits the analog man out of security, then the game gets so much harder because now that analog man is stuck and now your stack can get tucked under. That was a really huge weakness in the deck. And so his idea was to run a hybrid in order to get rid of the Tamer, so that way even if they hit one out of security, you can still keep your stack alive. And I took that one step a little bit further and we turned it into Sephirothmon. Sephirothmon is when digivolving, one of your opponent's Digimon has to attack at the start of the main phase. The idea behind this is the pseudo removal sort of deal. By forcing your opponent to swing, you can immediately have them run into your Chaosdramon, your Machinedramon stack, and you can just delete it. And then you're denying them any like win digivolving value. You're denying them any like setup. Like it was really strong in theory. In theory, it was very good. So that's where we met the adaptation. I completely cut the Hagurus. I cut the WarGreymons. I wasn't playing them in the original list. Actually, I think I was playing 2 WarGreymon in the first iteration, but I cut that and I streamlined it completely. We're on 4 Doru because memory gain is insane. It also searches for Chaos X, which is such a key card. And bumped up my Jazza and Sunriza lines, and then 3 tank, 4 Jazzard. And really, I feel like for EX4 specifically, this lineup is like perfect. Like this was the perfect lineup, I think, for this deck. I would not have changed a single thing about this deck. It performed exceptionally well in testing. It performed exceptionally well in the tournament. Like I have no regrets about this deck. When we get to Fort Worth, it's like a 4-hour drive. We're tired. And we go to our Airbnb, and there are 2 matchups that I have not practiced, or 3 really. There are 3 matchups I have not practiced, just because of time. One of those matchups is Security Control. I have not practiced against Security Control, but I know Security Control, it can be a very rough matchup because they're running like the Chaos Degradation, they're running the Lonke, and Death X, and it's just like a plethora of things that like made things challenging. I had no practice into Mill Loop, and that was a deck that was on the rise in popularity. It had won an event recently. Tessero popularized it, one of my boys, but Mill Loop was definitely on the rise. And I didn't have a lot of practice into Blue Flare. I had a lot of practice as the Blue Flare, but I didn't have a lot of practice on the Machinedramon side of things. So, but I knew, after my experience, that if you set up your analog mans, that generally they can't do a lot, because then you can just redirect all their swings. So that night, I wanted to make sure that I had enough practice. So I played into Red Hybrid, I played into Hunters, 2 decks I expected to see a lot. I played into a little bit of Warg, and then I played into Setcon and Mill Loop. And versus Setcon, I thought it was a very doomed matchup, but one of my mods, Psycho Feather, he told me that actually it's not too bad for Machinedramon, because all you need to do is you just need to slam your 5s. If you keep slamming your 5s and they keep trying to remove it, eventually they'll run out of removal, and then you can just win out the game from there. So all I did was I very recklessly, I dropped my 5s, I dropped my 6s, and I kept saying, do you have removal? Do you have removal? Do you have removal? And the moment he said no, then I could start playing the game. He dropped a Death X, it would start clearing my board. That's cool. I would drop my rookies to eat the Death X proc, and then the Death X, when I attempted to clear out the Chaosdramon X, that would then burn, that would end up burning one of his security, and that was really strong. So in the end, I did have some practice into Security Control. I felt really good. Turns out it's very doable. And then into Mill Loop. Mill Loop is something I have almost no practice into. I was very scared of this matchup, but I was like, okay, well, he can never actually remove my stack. How bad could it be? Turns out, it's very difficult at times. So my 2 first games into Mill Loop, I've never experienced this before, and I had lethal both games, but I didn't go for it because I was like, oh, I probably have like another turn. There's no way he can actually kill me, right? Then he milled me for like 24 cards, both games, and I was like, oh shit, like okay, I need to just hit the gas pedal. Like I just can't mess around with this. And so I got my ass whooped by Mill Loop for like a hot sec. It was like 2 in the morning. I want to go to bed, and I as a person, I am very outwardly confident, but when it comes to tournaments and stuff, I'm very anxious, and I am very not so confident when it comes to tournament. I doubt my choices, I doubt my playmaking, I doubt a lot of things when it comes to tournament. And I spent the next hour or 2 in bed talking to people, trying to figure out how do I beat Mill Loop, because I was afraid. I would run into this matchup and it would cost me. So I spent an extra time that night, starting at 2 a.m., trying to figure out how to beat Mill Loop. And by the end of the night, I figured it out. it wasn't like a solid game plan. Like it wasn't like a 100% success rate or anything. Like, because like with hunters, I tested that matchup and I figured out a way to beat it. But with mill loop, I didn't have the time to test it. I didn't have a time to try and like solve that puzzle. So with mill loop, it was a little more so like I was relying on the theory in of itself rather than the actual practice. So, and then blue flare, nobody at the Airbnb had blue flare on them, so I just didn't get practice into that. We go to the venue. And I expect this to be like, it's the last EX4 event. It's in person. Like, how many people can there really be? I was expecting like 256 people, right? That was my expectation. Little did I realize it would be 406 players, or like 408. It was over 400 players at that event. And what I thought would be a 7-round tournament quickly became a 9-round tournament. And let me tell you, I was exhausted. I was very exhausted throughout the course of this. Like, I mentally, physically, I was losing it. But I feel confident about my deck choice at this point. I've practiced this Machinedramon list for 4 months now. I feel very good about it. Originally, I was on 2EX1 because I was like, oh, maybe WarGreymon will be popular. And then like eventually I was like, nah, I doubt it. So I cut it back to 1. And yeah. So come the event, my round 1, I'm against Blue Flare. And it's funny because the guy next to me is playing Machine, and the guy next to me is also playing Machine, and like the people across from me are all playing Blue Flare, and like it was just Machine versus Blue Flare like all around. And I was like, oh, okay, that's good. That's the kind of day it's going to be. So I play it out, and I set up like 3 analog bands. I know in this matchup that you just need to get those online ASAP. So I set up 3 analog bands, and he just cannot do anything into me because he stuns me out. But then I'm like, oh, well, I'll redirect anyway. And eventually I just grind him out and get to the point where he can no longer stun me, so then I can just, beat over and win the game. Game 2, very similar story. I just do the exact same strategy. I just set up multiple analogs. I'm very aggressive about it. So my philosophy was, unless he shows me something I should be afraid of, like a Great Maelstrom, for example, I'm just not going to respect it. So instead of like, oh, I need my Chaosdramon to play around the Great Maelstrom, I just went into the BT11 Machinedramon, and then I directly went into Chaosdramon X. It's that way I could like filter 10 cards for my analog bands. I was just hard looking for the analog man, right? And that strategy paid off immensely, and yeah, got the round 1. And we're going in between round 1 and 2. I heard that some people were playing Cross 7 Superior mode with Kaiser Nail in their Blue Flare list. And that terrified me because that completely outs Machinedramon's protection, right? Because you strip all the sources and you bot deck, which means I don't have any sources to purge, so I'm getting bot decked, right? So that is terrifying, absolutely terrifying to me, and I really didn't want to have to deal with that. Going into round 2, I played into Blue Flare again. And same strategy, I approached it the same way. I just looked for analogs, but this time he actually did reveal the Great Maelstrom. So yeah, he hit me with Great Maelstrom, and I was like, okay, I actually do need to like respect this a little bit. And with that in mind, I just, instead of going from Machinedramon straight to Chaosdramon X, I added the Chaosdramon in between, and we ended up getting the round 2 2-0 as well. So going into round 3, we playing a red hybrid, and red hybrid is a matchup I feel very confident in, but sometimes they just like kind of outgas you. And game 1 of round 3 was very scary because I opened very poorly, and my opponent was hitting like the nuts. And so I went to like all the way down to 0 security, and I mean, let me tell you, it was scary. It was really scary, but we managed to set up enough analog bands. We set up our Chaosdramons, and he just couldn't get through us, and eventually I won the game. And it was a very similar story, albeit a little bit easier, game 2. And so we win round 3 2-0 as well. Going to round 4, it's another red hybrid player, and this time he's playing like a ton of Gravity Crushes. He has multiple copies of the Blitz Omni. Like it's really scary. And it gets to the point where I have to make a decision, and that decision almost costs me the game. If my opponent had Gravity Crush plus the Blitz Omni, then I could have lost game 2, and I would have gone to a game 3. And if that were the case, I don't know what would have happened. But luckily, I was able to resource choke my opponent very well, and then he just didn't have all the combo pieces he needed to actually beat me. But I noticed in this round 4, my play was starting to get a little sloppy because I was missing certain procs. I was missing I missed off an analog proc even though I had it in my hand, and that like costed me like certain choke points here and there that I definitely could have used very very well. And so I've noticed because of this, because of my misplays, I almost lost that game. And so in between round 4, in between round 5, we had a lunch break. And I sat there and I reflected. I thought about the game throughout the course of it, and I was like, okay, what could I have done here? What could I have done differently there? And I really did just like go through it all in my head, and I was like I really would have lost if I had made that play, if I made that like fuck up. So going into lunch, my philosophy, my general rule is that I do not eat until I win. Because when I eat, I get a little bit lethargic. I get a little bit sleepy, and it's harder for me to focus. But this was a 9-round tournament. I needed to get some food in my tank. So we went. I got as light of a meal as possible. I think I got a single taco, and I went back to the venue to prepare myself because I needed this. I needed to get through this like state as soon as possible. And I did start to get a little bit sleepy during this. So going into round 5, I'm playing against WarGreymon. And this is a little bit scary because at this point we're undefeated. I'm at table 2, and we're playing against WarGreymon, and this is a matchup where depending on what tools they have in their package, they can like swing this matchup in their favor. But he goes for the Metal Greymon X, and it's like a standard like raid WarGreymon list, and he punches me for all my security, and it gets down to the wire. He punches me out. He has the Omni X, and I break a little bit. And yeah, he swings for like all this damage, and I somehow, by the skin of my teeth, actually managed to 2-0 because he would give me to 0 security, and then I would set up my Chaosdramon, and because he doesn't have the Digivolve or the Digivolve protection, he can't get rid of my stack. And so throughout the entire time of this, I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, okay, well, even though I'm at 0 security, if you can't hit me, then I don't lose the game. And eventually I was just able to take away all of his stacks and then, won out the game from there. So very similar story. I won round 5 like that, where I went to 0, or I went to 1 security super quickly, and then I just stabilized. Which, this is a reoccurring trend throughout the rest of my day. But round 6, I played into a person, and they had a Gallantmon playmat. They had a Gallantmon memory marker, and they casually dropped a top 8 Ultimate Cup Gallantmon in front of me. I was like, they're really funny. It'd be funny if you're playing Gallantmon. No, he's playing WarGreymon. And this is probably the most interesting WarGreymon build I think I've seen in the entire EX4 format. He had the BT11 Metal Greymon, he had the BT8 Metal Greymon, he had the Gaiomon, he had all of the the tools that made the Machinedramon matchup difficult. So he was giving me a run for my money. And when I think I almost stabilized, when I'm like, I think I finally made it through all of this, he drops the Omnimon Alter B. He drops Omnimon Alter B on top of me, and DJ devolves me by 30. I'm like, oh my god, like, wow, okay, sheesh. So I managed to stabilize. I managed to restabilize, and I think I'm in the clear. And he evolves Alter B on top of Alter B with a Black Warg and a Black Warg X underneath, and he swings, he burns me for 2 security, pops my stack, and I lose the game. And I'm like, I'm getting sauced, I'm getting hardcore sauced. Game 2, I brick a little bit, I hard slam a level 5, and I at this point, I'm like feeling really bad about like this, because I'm like, this feels bad, this feels really bad. But luckily, he actually struggles a little bit to close out the game. And he bot decked one of his Alter Bs, so I thought I was in the clear for a little bit, and it gets to the point where he just doesn't have enough push to get through to my security, even though I'm at 0 security, and he decks out. So he decks out in game 2 because he's just drawing too many cards in order to find the solution, but at that point it just wasn't enough. And game 3, it was a very, very, very close game 3, very, very close, but I was able to establish my Chaosdramon stack very early on, and then every time he would Digivolve me, I would just immediately threaten him back with another Chaosdramon, and then over time, eventually I won the War of Attrition, and we won game 3. But he was a really amazing player. It was probably the most unique list I've seen. I would say his name, but I don't want to like like if he wants to like keep that thing on if he wants to keep it on the down low, I'm gonna keep it on the down low. But if he wants to like like show himself in the comments, like by all means go ahead. You were an amazing player, you were a super cool guy, and your list was absolutely amazing. But up to you. And round 7. So going into round 7, there are four undefeateds. Yes. No, 5. There are 5 undefeateds. There are 5 undefeated players going into round 7. There's me. I'm the one Machinedramon player that's undefeated. There are 2 Blue Flare players, and there are 2 WarGreymon players. And what's interesting is that one of these Blue Flare players, because I sat next to him, right? I was at table 2. This player was at table 1. He was playing Kaiser Nail Cross 7 Superior mode, and I was like, if I parented this guy, I'm doomed. Like, I will lose the game. But I'm like, okay, well, I have a 25% chance to run into him, and then I have a 75% chance to dodge him, because I either play into the Blue Flare player that doesn't have it, or I play into 2 of the WarGreymon players. I don't know if those players have the techs to beat me. Like, I don't know if they have BT8 metal, I don't know if they have BT11 metal, I don't know if they have, the Kaiser Nail Superior, but all I know is that this one guy does have Kaiser Nail Superior. And we go to the bathroom, me and him, and I'm like, wouldn't it be like, how's your day? Like, wouldn't it be funny if we pair into each other? I mean, he was a really cool guy. He was really, really, really cool. We were just talking. And lo and behold, he is my opponent. I lost the die roll. I hit the 25%, and I paired into Cross 7 Superior Blue Flare. And let me tell you, I got throttled. Like, I got thoroughly throttled. Game 1, I had this amazing stack, and I was trying to set up a second stack so I have a backup, but he just outpaced me throughout the course of the game. He hit me with the Cross 7 Superior, and it's 17k. I can't exactly block that either. So game 1, it goes down. And game 2, this is the moment where all of that mental fatigue ended up catching up with me, because I made so many misplays in game 2. I was playing into the stun, I was playing into the restand, like I just was not playing very well game 2. My mental fatigue finally caught up to me, and I lose round 7, 0-2. But again, he played really, really well. I'm not just the mental fatigue, right? But he played absolutely amazing. He had a really amazing deck. I loved his deck build. I thought it was really good. We talked after the game. He was like, "Yeah, I've been practicing for like 3 weeks with this deck, and I have not lost I have not lost a Warg, and I have not lost a Machinedramon with this build." And yeah, I can see it. Cross 7 Superior mode kind of is a crazy card. But yeah, so that's my one loss, and I'm feeling a little bit scared now, because it's a 9-round event, and if I lose my next 2 rounds, I could just not get my invite. After coming this far. We're going to round 8, and I'm feeling a little bit shaky right now, but I'm playing into WarGreymon. I'm playing a Warg again, and it feels very similar to round 5 actually, where he puts me to 0, and then I just restabilize and we come back. Again, I just want to state, all of my opponents throughout that entire day were absolutely fantastic. All really nice people. They're all great players, and I had a lot of fun. These WarGreymon players were trying to give me a heart attack, because they would put me to 0 and I was sweating. But he didn't have the BT8 metal, and he didn't have the BT11 metal, so again, I won the war of attrition eventually. And yeah, that's more or less the story of how round 8 went. So I actually won round 8. In round 9, this is the final round. Because I won round 8, I am guaranteed top 16 at this point. Even if I were to lose my round 9, I am guaranteed top 16. And going to round 9, and I don't know what he's playing. And for whatever reason, I think he's playing Setcon. I don't know why he's playing Setcon. I just had like a feeling. I felt like the one matchup I was not underprepared for, it would just come to bite me. And I almost kept a hand specifically for dealing with Setcon, but then I was like, okay, I don't actually know what he's playing. Let me do a normal mulligan. Lo and behold, he is playing WarGreymon, and just like all of the games before, he didn't have the BT8 metal, he didn't have the BT11 metal, and so the war of attrition, Machinedramon won out. But game 1, we play clean. It's good. We get it. In game 2, I don't know why, but my mental fatigue catches up very, very, very quickly with me. I make a misplay that costs me a lot, and I end up losing game 2. In game 3, I'm like, oh wait, I need to get back into it. I snap myself out of it. I get super serious, and we managed to win out on game 3. And so we have finished the day X and 1. And I'm really happy. I'm really happy I'm X and 1. I got my invite. I'm super ecstatic. And the final standings are up, and it turns out I got in second place at the end of the day. I looked at the score. I looked at my like tiebreaker ratios and everything, and out of all of the X1s and even the XO, I had the best like percentage score. The XO obviously still wins because you're XO, like of course you're gonna win. But out of everyone else, my percentage score was by far the highest, and I think it's because throughout the entire day I was more or less 2-0ing everyone. I had only a few times that I actually go 2-1, but for most day I just 2-0'd everyone, and I think that is like the biggest contributor to why I got second place. So we got second, and I'm feeling really, really good about it. I feel amazing. This has been the highest placement I've had since I won the event back in 1.5, and I feel really good. But that I know this is a little bit of a long video. But I wanted this to be like very natural, very authentic, and I think the takeaway to have here is figure out your matchups and genuinely like just practice it to the core, practice it to a T. Figure out what works best for you, collaborate with others, and just have some confidence in yourself. Which I guess it's kind of obvious. I guess it's not really like anything insightful or anything like crazy, but I don't know. Like I feel very proud of my journey to come this far, and I'm really excited to go to nationals this year. And I really hope to see, the rest of you viewers at nationals as well. So thank you so much for watching, and yeah, peace out.